The year was 2011. The old musty area known as Barrows had sat unchanged for the most part since its 2005 release. Upon its release, the Barrows armor set stood tall as the best of the best in terms of armor and were widely seen being utilized by high-end players for years afterwards. The armor sets were worth millions and were highly sought after, with Guthans being 10 million at one point and Varax over 6 million. Fast forward roughly 6 years later and the armor was just seen as pretty good. It wasn't bad at all by 2011, it was just simply good and fairly cheap, kind of a budget option. A pretty far plunge from its title of the hands down best just a few years prior. It had been overtaken in terms of popularity by things such as Bandos and Armadillo in 2007, then in 2011 extremely wealthy players took to utilizing the next armors such as Torva, Virtus, and Pernix for melee, magic, and range styles due to their superior stat bonuses. Keep in mind the community in 2011 had began to stop caring as much about defensive bonuses and leaned more toward being as effective as possible in terms of DPS. If the monster died quicker, the less damage they would take in their eyes. This viewpoint is still widely held on both games today by many. Just 1 month prior to Rune Fest 2011, a new Barrows brother had been added in September alongside the Ritual of the Majorat quest, Akrasay the Doomed. Akrasay the Doomed's armor at the time served as magic and melee hybrid armor with an effect similar to Guthan's, but instead of HP it had a chance to restore prayer. A neat idea on paper, but the hype for it died down fairly quickly. It was also overshadowed by 3 new best in slot boots for each style, those being the Glaven, Ragefire, and Steadfast boots for ranged, magic, and melee, and the ridiculously powerful Armadillo staff that was released at the same time. Regardless, this showed Jagex was starting to put a focus on the Barrows area and that there might be more things coming in the future to the iconic content. That brings us to Rune Fest 2011, the second Rune Fest event held by Jagex, which took place on October 29th and 30th. Here, Jagex made an announcement regarding Barrows receiving a graphical overhaul sometime in the coming months, complete with drawings of concept art. Fast forward to January of 2012, a full graphical overhaul of the Barrows wights and their armor's appearance took place. The mounds and inner tombs also saw vast graphical updates. Many players, including myself at the time, groaned at some of the new graphical updates, thinking the armor revamp looked silly and wanting to stick to the old aesthetics. No longer were the Barrows wights their traditional pink color, they were now different shades of gray and brown. Aram now had a skull face for some reason, and the rest of the Barrows brothers looked way different when compared to their former pink selves. The puzzles and creatures within the crypt remained the same, but as previously stated, the mounds and some aspects of the inner chambers, such as the Barrows chest, had been changed. Personally, the green orbs on some of the various Barrows weapons, such as the Varax flail, kinda killed it for me. It's kind of a goofy reason to be fair, but hey, that's the way I felt at the time. So, they've graphically updated Barrows and put a lot of work into it obviously, but by 2012 much better money making methods had come out. The only players left doing Barrows were mid-level players and very few high-level players, as this was a few years before the Iron Man game mode was even released. Something else was needed to increase the hype and draw more people back to Barrows so that Jagex's work would actually be seen by as many people as possible. So, in order to celebrate the full revamp, Jagex buffed the Barrows chest to have a 1 in 10 chance to double runes, bolt racks, and Barrows items that were received. Also, as part of the celebration, the draconic visage was thrown in as a possible reward as well from the Barrows chest, and yes, it could also be doubled. This loot buff and additional visage drop started on January 4th, 2012 and ran a full week all the way until January 11th. From what I remember, it was not all that rare either. I had a friend get 2 of them over the course of a day or so and saw many more individuals within the Swift IRC chat obtain one. And yes, I realize IRC stands for Internet Relay Chat, so I technically just said Internet Relay Chat, but hey, some people don't know what IRC stands for anymore, so I figured I'd say it that way. The Visage was a sizable 10 mil on January 4th, but that price quickly fell to under 7 mil by March 1st due to how many came into the game within the week. I included until March 1st just to see the somewhat longer term impact on the Visage rather than just doing 7 flat days, as that wouldn't show everything. Also, just in case you were wondering, the Dragon Defender came out in December of 2010, and the Super Anti-Fire Potions, which allowed different shield slots to be used during combat with dragons due to offering that full Dragon Fire protection, arrived in 2009. Both of those updates had already impacted the Visage price at this point, therefore the drop in price was solely due to the Barrows rework rework this time. The various Barrows sets also saw significant drop-offs relative to their overall price as well due to the potential double drops, as well as just more people in general doing Barrows for the improved loot. The Visage drop was removed from the Barrows table as promised on January 11th along with that double loot chance. And that concludes the weird small tale of how the draconic Visage got added to the Barrows chest as a possible reward in 2012 and crashed the price by a good margin. A weird small piece of RuneScape history. 2012 would unfortunately get much weirder though, with the Squeal of Fortune being released just a month after this update in February. Gross. This video should only be a few minutes in length, and in my view it's nothing too detailed or special. It's kind of popcorn content while I'm working on a bigger project. Regardless of that, I hope you enjoyed the video. Maybe you guys remember this weird point in RuneScape and I jogged your memory a bit, or maybe you learned something totally random and new. I'm the RuneScape historian, checking out. Peace guys, and take care. If you like historical RuneScape content, check out one of the videos on screen.